Hello, my name is Sinead and I'm a Student Recruitment and Outreach Officer at the University of Westminster. Every year I help hundreds of students with their UCAS personal statements, and today I'm going to help you as an access student with yours. So I'll talk about what to include in your personal statement and how to structure it, how you can use being an access student to your advantage, and I'll make sure to include plenty of examples throughout. So as you're watching this, please feel free to pause and rewind as you need and take notes throughout, because I think there'll be some really valuable information for you. So first off, pick your favourite puppy. Got one? Great. So you could have chosen any of these 8 puppies. They're all very similar, all very cute, but you were drawn to one in particular. So this is the same for personal statements. So admissions tutors, that's the university staff that will be making a decision on your application, will read through hundreds of applications from students that are all very similar in terms of their background and qualifications that they're studying. So your personal statement is what will show your personality and make you stand out from the other students. So let's look at how you can use being an access student to your advantage. So we all know that the most common entry route to university is as an 18-year-old straight from sixth form or college, but this doesn't mean that they always make the best students. So as an access student, you're generally older and more mature. For whatever reasons, you decided education wasn't for you at that stage in your life, so you've taken some time out, and as a result, you've got greater life experience and challenges that you've overcome. So whether you've been working, travelling, looking after children, whatever your reasons, you'll have more to draw on versus a student straight from school or college, and clearer career goals. Because you've got a clearer vision of what you'd like to do in the future, and I'll also point it out that it's completely okay if you've not got that figured out yet. Universities will know that you're going to university for the right reasons, not just because it's the thing to do straight after school because your teachers say, but that you've better yourself and put the work in to get where you want to be. I'm not going to spend too much time on the guideline. This information is readily available online anyway, and hopefully your teachers will cover it all for you, but I will touch on the basics. So you're going to write one personal statement for all of your choices, and that can be up to 5. So if you're applying for different types of subjects, just remember that you need to encompass all of that into one personal statement. And it's a maximum of 4,000 characters, so that will include spaces and punctuation, equals about a page of writing, single spaced. And a page really isn't a lot, so you just want to make sure you're being really concise throughout. One important thing that I'll stress is there's no spelling check on UCAS, so you want to make sure that before you submit your statement, you check it in Word and also get feedback from your teachers to make sure everything is correct. And so the official UCAS deadlines are the 15th of October, that's for any Oxbridge medicine, dentistry or veterinary medicine courses, and it's the 15th of January for most other courses. However, please check with your college because they'll have set an internal deadline a few weeks before this to give your teachers a chance to add a reference. So if you are looking at the 15th of January deadline, it's likely that your college's deadline will be sometime in December before the Christmas break. And it can't be sent off to universities until the reference has been added, so just bear that in mind. So you can apply after the 15th of January, but there's no guaranteeing that there'll be spaces left on the course. So I suggest making sure that you get your application done as soon as possible. So admissions tutors will normally look at your application in this order. So first of all, they're going to look at your predicted grades to make sure you meet the entry requirements, and then check the reference put on by your college. They'll then look at your previous qualifications and work experience, so what you've been doing since you've been out of education, and then they're going to look at your personal statement. So this is going to be the only section that you've got complete control over. Now, in terms of structure, you want to structure it just like an essay. So you want to make sure that you've got a clear beginning, which draws the reader in, a middle that builds up your argument of why you're the perfect candidate, and a strong ending to reiterate your points. So the main focus should always be on your enthusiasm and academic interest in the subject. Now, this percentage differs between institution, but for higher tier universities, you want to make sure you're aiming for at least 75% to be on your academic interest, knowledge of the subject, interest and enthusiasm. Now, you might think that sounds like a lot, considering you've likely only just started your Access course, but I'll talk about what you can include later on. Now, obviously, as an Access student, you might have a lot of work experience that you can draw on, especially if you're applying for a course like nursing. Now, when it gets to writing everything down, a common mistake that I see students make is describing everything that they've done, but not reflecting on it to show how it makes them a fit student for their chosen course. So I could say, I really liked the politics module on my course because I find it interesting to learn about the political impact on society and cultures different to my own. Now, I'd say that's an okay start, but it's not really saying much other than I like politics, just like everyone else that's applying for this course. Really. I'll come back to how to improve that example in a bit. But how we would get around that is by using the ABC method when writing. So A stands for activity. So what is it that you've done? Okay, this could be parts of your Access course, work experience, maybe a book that you've read. B, what was the benefit of the activity? So what skills did you develop? Now this is where you're going to reflect on what the experience gave you. And then the important bit students forget to do, how does this activity and the skills you've gained show that you're suitable for the course? So remember, the personal statement, it's showing your suitability for the course. So that's always the main focus and what you want to be thinking about when you're writing. So here's an example of the ABC method in action, going back to the politics example, but this time using the ABC method. This student studies an online course, so they've already shown the reader that they've taken the interest outside of the classroom, and they've done a really good job of explaining how it's benefited them. So what I would do after this is go into a bit of detail specifically about what they learnt on the course. So perhaps they could compare political differences between their own culture and then that they've studied. And if you want to take note of the website on the page, mooc.org, I'll just show you the website. Now, this is a great page which offers free courses from universities around the world. And as you've likely just started your Access course, so you won't have as much academic stuff to write about, it's a really good idea to go on here or find something similar to bulk out your personal statement. So you get to the main page and you can just search by interest. So I've gone for politics, and you can see here there's courses from all around the world looking at all different interests in the subject. So for example, we were to look at Korea, we could look at the USA. There's so many to choose from, and this is where you can really show your personality, show what you're interested in, and make you stand out. So we'll go through section by section now. And just to note, there isn't any set structure that you have to follow. This is just a simple format that I recommend, but you might find something else that works better for you. So first of all, we've got the introduction. So just like meeting someone in a job interview, pleased to meet you, your first impression is really going to count. So you want to grab the reader's attention just right from the beginning and get your passion across and tell the reader why you want to study this subject. As an Access student, you also want to answer the question, why now? Think about what's led you to this decision to re-enter education and this subject in particular. One of the dangers of trying to come up with a great opening sentence is you can often end up overthinking it and going overboard. So there's a number of opening sentences that are completely overused that we really want to avoid. So things like, from a young age, I've always wanted to be a doctor, or I've always been interested in accountancy. It doesn't sound sincere, and these are used again and again, so you're not really going to grab the reader's attention. You're probably going to send them to sleep, frankly. So in order to make the opening sentences eye-catching, you want to start with something unique about you. So I always suggest maybe an interesting person on why you chose the subject, or an unusual experience that offered you a different perspective. So just remember, we don't need your life story. There's no selection criteria for being witty, so make sure you keep it relevant to the course. Now, one tip I do have for you is to write your introduction last so you don't get stuck. It's often the trickiest section to write, so I suggest getting some ideas down, but don't focus on it too much and neglect the rest, because you'll then just, time will slip away from you. It's better to get the rest of it done if you're stuck, and then come back to it at the start with a fresh mind. So as I previously said, your academic interest in the subject should make up a big part of your statement. So you want to tell the reader what you enjoy about the subject, how you're prepared for academic study, and how your current course links with your degree choice. As you only just started your course, you might not have much to talk about. So this is where supracurricular activities come in. Now, this is anything you've done outside of your Access course to deepen your understanding in the subject. So that can be books, articles, podcasts, TED Talks, or books like we spoke about earlier in the politics example. So this is a great way to make your personal statement personal, as what area you're interested in is different from another applicant. You don't need to do loads of this. If you just spent a couple of hours each week, you could get some great things to talk about, and it'll help you prepare for university, because there's a big focus on independent study. So it's going to benefit you in the long run too. So always make sure that you're using a reliable source. So have a look on websites like Google Scholar or books written by researchers for students. You just want to make sure that the person writing what you're talking about has some sort of academic or professional status. So here's another example for you. So this student's done really well to comment on how the Access course has benefited them thus far. So it's talking about the skills that it's given them, and sort of link that to university in a small way. So there's not a whole lot of info here. Obviously, the university's not expecting a lot if you've only just started your course a few months ago. So then I'd probably expect them to talk about some supracurricular activities after this, and really show who they are as a student. So work experience. So you also want to talk about what you've been doing whilst outside of education. Now, we don't need to know everything you've done, because some people, obviously, it might be a lot. So you just want to select a couple of things and talk about them in more detail. So it doesn't matter if it's not directly related to your chosen degree. Universities know that not everyone can secure a placement in a hospital or an accountancy firm, especially with COVID. That's cancelled quite a lot of things. What we're more interested in is what you've learnt from any opportunity. So whether that's volunteering at your local youth club or working in retail, you can just focus on the transferable skills that you've gained, things like teamwork and communication. So you also want to talk about your you can also talk about the extracurricular activities, but I suggest only talking about them if there's relevant, and don't feel like you have to put it in just because your college gives you a personal statement help sheet that has that on. So I read a lot of statements that'll be really good, and at the end they'll say, I like reading, cooking and hanging out with my family. Now that doesn't show how you're suitable for the course. So for most people, you'd probably be better off utilising that word count to talk in more detail about your work experience. And throughout, you want to make sure you're talking about these experiences using the ABC method. So making sure you're reflecting on what those experiences gave you. So here's another good example of that. So this student talks about volunteering at their local church, and they've done a really good job to relate it to their career ambitions. Now, the conclusion is really the second first impression. Want your statement to fall short at the end, like you've got bored and just thought, that's enough, I'm done with it now. You want to write 2 to 3 really strong sentences to remind the reader why you're right for the course and reaffirm your ability and determination to succeed. So if you haven't already, this can be quite a good place to talk about your career aims. Obviously, just keep it brief. It's good to show the reader that you're being forward thinking, but that's not necessarily going to be a deciding factor for them. So here's another great example. So I'm excited about the prospect of studying psychology and ready for the challenges presented by study at degree level. Not only am I setting an example to my daughter, but more importantly, allowing myself to reach the potential that I know I have. So what I like about this conclusion is that the student sounds really confident in themselves. They're not saying, I think I'm ready for this challenge. They're saying, I know I'm ready. And that's going to make the reader feel confident that they'll succeed too. So you don't necessarily have to do the ABC method in the conclusion, because you're not really talking about an activity. So don't get confused and think that you have to do it there. So just to recap on all of that, you want an introduction, which tells the reader why this subject and why now. You want to talk about your academic interest inside and outside of the classroom. to talk about what you've been doing whilst out of education and the skills you've gained, and then conclude all of that in 2 to 3 sentences. So remember what I said, this isn't a set structure you have to follow. You might find something else that suits you and your experience better. Like some people, as an example, begin talking about their work experience as that's what's inspired them to pursue further education. Some people go straight into talking about their academic interest. Just what works well for you. So I know that was quite a lot of information and it probably feels a bit daunting to get started. So here's what I recommend doing. First of all, you want to research the course and determine what qualities and skills the perfect student of that course would have. So think about keywords like communication, patience, determination, because these are what you want to weave into your personal statement. Next, you want to have a look at your own skill set and motivations. So think about everything that you've done. You won't use all of it, but obviously it's a good idea to get everything down to have a good bank to pull from. And lastly, you're then going to cross-reference the 2 sheets. So see where your own experience overlaps that with the perfect candidate. And if you don't have much, then this is where you should start some super curricular activities, see where you can fit those pieces in. So some do's and don'ts. So when you're writing your personal statement, you do want to make sure that you keep it personal. It's about you and your experiences. So if you're writing about a group project, you want to make sure that the focus of your writing is going to be on your own ideas and contributions, not that of the whole group. You want to make sure that you're being analytical and not just descriptive. So that's using the ABC method where you can. Do keep it concise, so make sure you're not waffling on, and do please seek advice if you get stuck. Okay, speak with your teachers, your friends, your family, get their opinion, because you can help improve it with every redraft. What not to do, please don't lie or exaggerate. Okay, you don't want to say you've done work experience at a biomedical science lab and then you're asked about it in an interview and you can't elaborate on it. And equally, you should copy anyone else, and includes the examples I've used today. Okay, UCAS has a plagiarism software, so it will check your statement against any other statement that's been submitted, so it can badly affect your application if you're caught. It's just not worth the risk. And make sure that you don't overcomplicate your language. So yes, you do want to sound professional, but you don't want to sound unnatural. Try to avoid using quotes, and you could paraphrase if you're referring to a book, but instead it'd be much better to talk about your opinion on it rather than quoting it. And lastly, don't include any irrelevant sob stories or flippant comments. And I'll leave you with some useful resources. So UCAS has got a really nice toolkit to use, and all the information that you need, like to do with your deadlines. And you can also find some examples of personal statements on websites like the Student Room and Studential. I definitely recommend having a look at examples to give you some inspiration, but remember not to copy. Have a search on YouTube too, because there's quite a lot of advice from university and students who've been there and done that. And we also have a feedback service here at the University of Westminster. So if you send us a draft for courses that we offer, then we can give you some feedback. So just send it to personalstatementhelp@westminster.ac.uk. You can take a look on our website, westminster.ac.uk, have a look at the courses we offer. And we do accept access courses for every one of our courses that we offer, and the requirements will be listed on each course page. Okay, so thank you for listening. I hope it's been really insightful for you. And just the last bit of advice I want to offer you is a question. So what can you do between now and submitting your application to enhance personal statement?